So then what should the U.S., Australia, what should be done to help support these people? And if the U.S. and Australian government isn't going to do that, what can the people of America and Australia do to push the politicians to actually do something?
So, as I mentioned, go after the money, but also just interview them, talk to them, learn from them. Soudani is likely on his way to the United States. Hopefully, there'll be a ability for him to be on a speaking tour, whatever. These guys know how China operates at a very ground level. They know how they buy them, how they flow the money. They understand Chinese political warfare better than the vast majority of people sitting in the think tanks in DC. Talk to them, learn from them. They'll tell you what they need. They know how to fight this. So there's that. The other thing is that broaden the group of allies. Japan, has a role to play. India, the foreign affairs Jaishankar leader was in Fiji just recently, and Prime Minister Modi is heading to Papua New Guinea sometime within the next few months. And India, we've talked about this before, India has the ability to displace a lot of what China does at the ground level economically, also in terms of telemedicine and e-education, all that sort of stuff, in a way that actually can help build up a society from the bottom up, which is what you want. You want this kind of dispersed, ground level democratic structure. India can be very helpful for that. So, even if you're just looking only at the Quad, those other two Quad members, Japan and India, also can be very helpful and have a role to play.
Do you think that there is? It seems like Australia's had its head in the sand for years now regarding the Solomons and the Pacific. Do you think that there is any turnaround happening in the U.S.? I know when the new Australian government came in, the Albanese government came in, they talked a lot about wanting to change how things are in the Pacific, but is there actually anything going on?
So on the U.S. side, there's so the U.S. is, none of these countries are monolith, and I'd say on defense, like Indo-PACOM, they get it and they're trying hard. There is a predilection in state to still be quite reliant on Australia and New Zealand at the top level. So Indo-Pacific, National Security Council Indo-Pacific Coordinator Kurt Campbell will still repeatedly and publicly talk about how important the relationship with Australia is in the region. Like that. But people who are operating in the region get told by the people in the region always, we want to deal with the U.S. bilaterally and directly. And when that happens, better things function. But there are a whole series of issues. I'll talk to you a little bit about Palau because I was just in Palau. And Palau is the site of the announced over-the-horizon radar installation that the U.S. is putting in the Northern Pacific. I went to go see the site of the receiving station, where the receiving station is going to be built. It's on an island called Angar. You can see Peleliu from Angar. They were critical battle locations during World War II. Angar has a population of about 100, and there's a Japanese war memorial. It's just the history is all over it and is in it, including a lot of unexploded ordnances. So when I got there to see this installation, how it was being developed, everything was at a dead stop. The bulldozers and everything are parked. The construction has ceased because the way that they normally do the demining in a place like Palau, in this particular case, is they work with a Norwegian NGO, and the Norwegian NGO does it with a metal detector and a shovel. And the contractors that had come in on the U.S. project had started clear-cutting, bulldozing, and digging down 3 feet. And the Palauan government said, you don't have environmental clearance for that. You're not allowed to do that. And so they had to stop and are now in the process of trying to get their environmental clearances. And somebody quite high up in U.S. defense came to Palau and reportedly told the president of Palau, well, if you stop our construction, then, we're going to have to fire our Palauan workers just before Christmas. And wouldn't that be terrible? And the Palauan president said, yeah, I mean, it's not going to reflect well on you, but, you can't threaten me with this. You didn't do the right thing. You didn't get the clearances. And so now you got to get the clearances. So it stopped. So even this one little case of trying to put in this over the horizon radar thing, it can break down at the ground level with the wrong contractors, with an inappropriate approach to partners. And this is just phase one. There are 3 phases. Phase 2 is apparently has gone to a Turkish company for the construction of the platform and whatnot. And the rumors going around Angar are that, and this may or may not be true, are that a large number of Turkish men are going to come to their island of 100 people to do this construction. They haven't been consulted. This may not be the case. It may just be a breakdown in communication, but it's fairly typical of the mismanagement of the relationship on the U.S. side that can lead to a big opening for Chinese political warfare. The people of Angar now are annoyed and scared at this installation going in. And one of them was telling me that, he asked when they heard about the installation, are you going to build us bunkers? Because you put in this radar receiving station on Angar, we just jumped way up the Chinese targeting list. And during World War II, we hid in caves. But the caves aren't going to be enough with these new Chinese weapons. So are you going to build us bunkers? And at the same time, they're not even resolving this confusion over what sort of workers are going to come and work on the island. So Chinese can come in and say, the Americans disrespect you. They destroyed your islands once before. They're not listening to any of your concerns. Why don't you just not have this radar station? Why don't you just take money from us to build a hospital instead?
Why is the Chinese Communist Party so much better at this?
Because they care, frankly.
Communist Party, we care.
They care about advancing the interests of the Chinese Communist Party. Because they have a focus and and a goal, and in this case, if they can take Palau off the map, it makes Taiwan a lot easier.
Well, Palau is very close to Taiwan.
Yeah, it's a couple hours down from Guam and over from Philippines.
Yeah, I guess that's the issue. The Chinese Communist Party has a goal in the Pacific, and it's very unclear what the United States or Australia's goal in the Pacific is. And there probably isn't one.
Yeah, Australia's goal, I mean, in the end, there are a lot of different Australias, but the one that seems to be leading the way, Australia's goal seems to be to make the U.S. think it's important in doing something. They've given over their defense and security to the U.S. There's a negotiation going on now about the financial aspect of that relationship. It happens once every 20 years. It happens to be now, and it happens to be at the time of elections in these places with extremely bad timing. It's become extremely political. But all 3 of them send a lot of their young men and women to join the U.S. Armed Forces at a much higher percentage than many U.S. states. But when they come back to their countries, they get none of the normal things that you would think they would get. They can't even get their VA medicine mailed to them, even though they have U.S. postal codes. The relationship is so close between Palau, FSM, and Marshall Islands to the U.S. They have U.S. postal codes, so it wouldn't, necessarily cost the VA anything extra to send them their medicine. And so I was talking to somebody in RMI in Marshall Islands about this. He was a recruiter, 20 years in the U.S. Army, and he was saying he had one young man who came back. He had PTSD. It couldn't be handled in Marshall's. He couldn't get his medication, and he took his own life. And as a recruiter, he feels like a former recruiter, that's such a fundamental betrayal of the relationship between the two countries that these veterans, if they feel abandoned like that, and which they are in many cases, they can either talk about they're the living embodiment in their villages and their families, the relationship, trust relationship between their countries and the U.S. And they can either defend that relationship or they can damage that relationship. If the U.S. isn't, you've got somebody who's lost a limb in Iraq and he has to pay out of pocket to try to get to Guam or Hawaii for medical care, and he may get it reimbursed or he may not get it reimbursed, and he has to go through all this paperwork. There's nobody there to help him. I mean, they used to get their medicine sent to them, apparently, and apparently a certain amount of this is what this recruiter was saying. They used to get it, and then it stopped, and they don't know why. And there are many other, Kwajalein, Marshall Islands has the Kwajalein base. Normally, somebody in his position could walk onto any base around the world, and go to the shop, the PX shop, and buy stuff and take it home. Not in Kwajalein. He can't walk into the PX in Kwajalein and buy something and take it off to another island. It's only for those that are on that island. So it's insult after insult and damage after damage. And if you want good news, it's a miracle that these people have decided to stay in their relationship with the United States for so long. But that's not a guaranteed thing. And there's a lot of PRC money going in to make sure that doesn't